Welcome to the Dana Grant Show, where heart-centered stories, authentic connections, real talk, and real action come together. I'm your host, Dana Grant, and I believe in the boundless potential within each of us. Join me as we dive into transformative conversations that not only inspire growth, but compassion with a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Let's embark on this journey together, unlocking all the power within and creating a life of purpose and fulfillment. This is the Dana Grant Show, where your story matters and your voice is heard, and I cannot wait to dive in. Welcome to the Dana Grant Show, where heart-centered connections, business, entrepreneurship, are heart-centered, and we are committed here to sharing the stories that you wouldn't normally hear. And I have an amazing guest with me today, and her name is Suzy Reading. And I am thrilled to have her here. Her story, I think, is going to inspire you. It's going to be uplifting. We're going to go deep, but we're going to go high. And welcome, Suzy. So glad to have you here.
Oh, Dana, thank you for such a beautiful, warm welcome.
Well, I didn't say much about you, but your energy just precedes anything I could say. And we will add that later, but I just would love to see this conversation just unfold, because I really, in our pre-conversations, loved how you show up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing where we meander, where we flow.
Well, when you originally came on my radar, I think it was your book, Self-Care for Winter, but it was more than that. It wasn't just the book, which we'll talk about. It was about your energy, how you consistently show up, and with the self-care, self-love in just a little bit different a format than what is presented out there. So we're going to start there. What inspired you to focus on that self-care, self-love? I mean, because you really do. You embody this out there and teach it.
That's my mission. It's a beautiful culmination of all of the different training that I've done. So I'm a chartered psychologist. I spent a decade working as a personal trainer. I'm a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
It draws all those modalities really beautifully together to empower people with nourishing skills and practices. But I'm going to be honest with you, Dana, like, all of that aside, it's life experience that sets us on this path, isn't it? And for me, it was becoming a mum at the same time as losing my father to motor neurone disease. Really taught me just how vital it is that we're tender with ourselves.
Right. So through that loss, you discovered that love and compassion and the art of caring was something, perhaps, was it lacking in your life prior to that? What dropped you into that deeper level where you pay it forward to the degree you do now? And the book, writing the book.
I would say that it opened up my eyes to just how challenging it is for people to nourish themselves. So prior to that experience, I'd worked for a decade empowering people with nourishing habits, and I lived that. I took really good care of myself, a daily movement routine, stretching, journaling, meditating, breath work, healthy foods, soul connection. It was healthy, right? But I think what I learned in that collision of life events is that so often the things that we would ordinarily do to nourish ourselves become inaccessible in those periods of squeeze. But also, I think that challenge, it really showed me that I had so much on my plate. I literally couldn't add to my burden with a single negative comment, with any element of self-sabotage. I really had to truly get on my own side, or otherwise I wasn't a fit place to mother. And I had to make a change. And so even though there was already that, healthy commitment to self-care, it became, hang on, anything other than self-respect, treating myself with dignity, that there's
Right.
no room in my life for that.
Did you feel that up until that point you were tolerating too much, or there were people in your life that you just kept giving extra birth to? It's like, well, I'm going to let that go. And did you was it about tolerating too much where you had to set the boundaries and say, this has got to stop and I need to
Yeah.
reset. I need to reset.
I think it was more sort of boundaries with self,
Mhm.
and actually realizing that um, I don't have infinite capacity.
Ah,
I had to just, there are things that I'm going to have to say, sorry, I can't do that.
right.
Or that thing is just, that's not going to fly. So I wouldn't say
Right.
that I wasn't boundary beforehand, but I would say that I had unrealistic expectations of self, and that
Ah.
I would quite often prioritize other needs above my own,
Right.
to the point where
Even
I,
as a working psychologist, you found
yeah,
yourself in this
yeah.
position where you would
Yeah.
you would put other needs before your own. What would you say to the people that are listening right now that perhaps they don't even need to be a psychologist, but I do have a lot of people that show up that are psychologists that are in this position where they can't seem to reprioritize. They try to, and they're just like, "I just can't. It just keeps happening where I'm putting other people first, and self-care and self-love just doesn't seem to come easy to me." What can
Mm.
you share with them that might be helpful? Because I know you are a master at this.
Oh, I would encourage them just to put a hand on their heart and say, do you know what? It's okay if you find it hard.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah,
Ah.
these are skills that we learn with practice. And
Mm.
I would say, don't wait for the feeling of worth to come before you do it. Don't wait for there to be an absence of guilt. Do it anyway, even in the
Right.
presence of guilt, even if you feel like you don't deserve it, because it actually comes, that feeling of worth comes from the loving action.
Right.
Yeah, from that tenderness. Um, and for me, I would just hope that anyone listening to this conversation would realize that you actually don't have to get to that state of energetic bankruptcy to call time.
Mm.
But obviously, when I hit that place of just having nothing left in the tank, it became easier to say, sorry, I can't do that. I hope that it doesn't take getting to that point for other people to realize it's okay to do things differently.
Right. Isn't
We
it
can do
unfortunate
things.
that's usually when it's on our radar, when we're so depleted that we don't know where to turn and do. So if they do get to that point where it's not on their radar, they just I mean, let's face it, this goes with surgeries, maybe I'm thinking of knees right now. It's been on my mind this week because so many people are having knee surgery and they could have done something differently along the way, but until it absolutely was
Uh-huh.
just like intolerable,
Yes.
then anything preventative, anything they could have done along the way that might have helped, now they're in this I love that you said the energetic bankruptcy. They're
Hmm.
bankrupt with their cartilage or whatever it is, and their one
Yeah.
option is surgery. What can
Yeah.
people do to navigate before they hit that energetic bankruptcy where they're just bottomed out? There's nothing left in the tank. If we look at the 5 stages of stress, they're in burnout.
I love that question. And it's so important. And this is what I hear time and time again. I can't look after myself. I can't take time for myself.
Yeah.
I must tend to the needs of everyone else before I have to clear my to-do list before I can even take a look inwards. You know,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about here, Dana. This is healthcare. Self-care is healthcare.
Yeah.
And without our health, what do we have? And so for people who haven't
Yeah.
quite reached that state of burnout, who are sort of thinking, is it okay for me to prioritize myself? Well, let's
Right.
take a look at what are the consequences of not. What do we have
Yeah.
without our health? And here's the thing, like if we can take action at the whisper,
Yeah.
the intervention that's required is
Right.
small. The recalibration is maybe effortless, or it doesn't take a lot of time. But if we wait for the shout, illness, injury, conflict, burnout, well, that's when it potentially takes weeks and months for us to
Right.
get back on track. And if we have got to that place well, this is where we just need to say, okay, so this is where I'm at. I'm going to learn the lessons here.
And what can they do when they hit there and they're like, what do I do now? What's applicable? What's an immediate thing I can do right now? I'm depleted. And you hear this, I'm sure you do as a psychologist. I
Yeah.
can't get out of bed. I'm exhausted all the time. I don't know what to do now. What would
I
be the
remember
first
that
step?
so well. In that state, that's when the normal types of self-care, save that for another time, because they take time
Mm.
and energy.
Thank you
This
for
is
that.
where,
This is, yeah,
like,
this is thank you for that.
I,
Yeah.
I haven't got the energy to read the book. I haven't got the energy to
Yeah.
journal. I can't focus. I can't do the breath work. I need to receive. That's
Right.
what we need. So how do we receive? So this is when Mother Nature is the healer.
Mm.
Receive light and life. And I know we're about to head into winter and people are thinking, oh my God, I don't want to go out into it. I know there are still ways of receiving, right? So maybe it's going to be, I'm going to snuggle in with my weighted blanket. I'm going to
Yeah.
clothe myself in garments that have colors that give me zest.
Yeah.
Or it's using all the kind, coaxing words and all of the tender. You might notice I do things like this a lot.
Yeah.
All of these gestures that just,
Yeah.
they ground us.
I
They
do
bring
too.
us
I love that.
home
I
to
love that you do that. You
ourselves.
you speak with I'm watching your hands because I'm watching you talk, but I'm watching you talk. And
Yeah.
what do you say to the people that say it's not enough because they're overthinkers already. They're probably overdoers. They're in that
Mm.
masculine action energy and they have to receive this. What do you say to the people that say that can't possibly because they've got the stories built up that this isn't going to work. I need something concrete. I need a complicated plan. What do you say to that?
I'd say try it. Should we try it? Should we do one?
Mm.
Yeah. Let's do it. Just rub hands together, create a little bit of warmth,
Mm.
feel that sense of I'm alive, I'm here, I'm in the now. And
Mm.
actually, right now, I'm safe. This is okay. And then cradle your chin in your hands.
Mm.
And if it feels good, you can let your eyes close. If not, do what feels comfortable for you. But with
I
this
like that. It's
gesture,
very comforting. I wouldn't have
yeah,
thought that.
it is. It's really
Cradling.
beautiful.
Hmm.
You notice children do this.
Oh, they
Yeah.
do. They do.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
really childlike gesture. But with
Yeah.
this, it's just, there's that sense of being held.
Mm.
And it's a reminder that we can come home to ourselves and all of that love and energy that we extend
Mm.
generously and effortlessly outwards, we can turn some of that inwards. And these
Mm.
things all have, well, they have an impact on our nervous system functioning, but also they have real cumulative power. I think they can be real circuit breakers.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is why I was so drawn to you because you really do keep it simple. You don't overcomplicate this process. And so often I find people have that blueprint of that they want to put it on self-care, self-love, and they've overcomplicated their life and they want the same plan of action in order to get out of it. I often say this, the brain that got you here, the actions that got you here aren't going to get you out of here. So I love the
Mm.
fact you did two simple steps. Can you repeat that again? You went warm up the hands,
Yeah.
warm up
Just
the
create a
hands. I
little
want
warmth.
everyone to hear this a
Yeah.
second time. It's this
Create the
simple.
warmth.
Create the
Come
warmth.
into this present moment
Yeah.
and then extend that warmth and care
And then
to yourself.
mm, just cradling.
Just
I
cradle
like to even
with
add because
tenderness.
the palms of our hands are connected to our heart energy.
Mm.
And I love the fact that you warmed up your heart,
Mm-hmm.
you activated. And I'm like, "Oh, she's
Mm.
activating the heart chakra." And
Ooh.
then, yeah, the palms are what we, the left is receiving. We put it on. I love to do this in my backyard on my redwood trees. And then I'm
Yeah.
receiving all that amazing energy from that tree.
Mm.
And, and it activates the palms, activate the heart. So you warmed up and activated the heart chakra. And then you encompassed. I mean, I felt such warmth, not just from the hands, but from activating the heart chakra. That was
That's
beautiful.
it.
Thank you for that.
Oh,
Thank you for
my
that.
pleasure. This is how we literally give love to ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing, Susie, how many people don't value giving love to themselves? What would you say to the people that have lived with a life of external validation? They get their love because they externally need it out here in the world, and they've abandoned themselves and they don't see the value. And it's like, well, that's not going to do anything for me. I need them to love me in order to feel valued. What do you have to say about, I mean, the percentage that we're talking about.
I
It's probably
do.
90% of your psychology practice.
Well, this is the thing. And for so many of these people, it's not been safe to honor self.
Yeah. I
This
love
is
that you just
the
said that.
protective mechanism.
Say that again. Say that again, even louder. It's not
It
what?
hasn't been safe
Yeah.
to be themselves. So
Yes.
they've had to shapeshift. They've had to please. They've had to do whatever it took to feel safe.
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes actually being in a different context, being in different
Yeah.
relationships to realize that actually we can bring our full, authentic self in connection with this other human being. Sometimes we can't do that. And
Yeah.
it's just, we do need to observe where it's safe to do that. But I would hope that even this conversation will help people feel differently about, okay, so there's context here. It's not that I can't be myself or honor myself or
Yeah.
respect myself. It's just that I need to be discerning as to who it's safe to do that with.
Exactly. I love that. Some of the most powerful work in my years and my journey in and out of therapy. I mean, I've had a big, messy life. I talk about that a lot. It'll be in my book. But I think about when I was ready for the last therapist who we shared an office together for years. I loved her. She used to slide notes under my door that says, "Too loud, Dana, too loud. I know you're having a joyful celebration over there in your life coaching world, but I'm doing deep, serious work here." And I'm like, and I always respected that. And we were very good friends. But when my life completely like imploded, shattered over it took, I didn't consider working with her, but when I did, it was the best 2 years of my life of explaining the safety, the going inward, not outward, and looking at that core wound and where it started and where the lack of safety I felt in the world and where
Yeah.
I had no idea that it was found within me, the safety. It was such a mind blowing when I had that realization. I think it's why I was drawn to you, your language, your upgraded language of how you speak. You spoke to my heart. I'm like, oh, yes. Before, I mean, if I wasn't connected and probably didn't have the healing, I would have been leaned in and not quite understood it. I would have practiced it. But when I read it, I'm like, it really resonated with me at the level I read it at, or where I was in my journey. And I'm like, it was so accurate, and not everyone gets it right. I mean, there's no perfection, but you just nailed it. And I'm like, Where did I find her? Australia, UK?" And I love your story. Let's unfold that. So thank you for your wisdom, and
Well,
thank you for not just getting it right, but just putting that energetic vibration out there for the people that need this message. It's available. But I know that you were born in Australia, but you live in the UK. How did all that happen? Tell me a little bit about you.
do you know, lots of twists and turns. So I actually accidentally moved to the UK. I was meant to come for a 2-month holiday. I'd interviewed for a job in Australia after finishing 6 years at
Mm,
uni. I got down to the last two for a
good.
management consultancy role, and I didn't get the job. And I was just bereft. And my mum said,
Yeah.
"Go and sort yourself out." My dad was English. My
Yeah.
brothers were living here at the time. She said,
Yeah.
"Go and have a holiday." So a two
Go
month
have a
holiday,
holiday.
yeah, got a 2-month holiday turned into a 7-year stay. And there was some parts of my degree that weren't recognized in the UK. And I'm like, I don't
Oh,
want to go and
yeah.
do a bridging course. I've just finished 6 years, forget about it. So I fell back on my part-time job of personal training, which is what I did when I was going through university.
Yeah.
But I have no regrets because I learned so much from that chapter. And now
Mm,
practicing as a psychologist, there's not a single person, whether they come to me for executive coaching, support through transition to motherhood, support through perimenopause, grief counseling, everyone's going to come away with some kind of movement practice, some kind of breath work. So, it all makes sense in the end.
yeah.
But
You
yeah,
just hit a hot ticket there. And I mean, it's out there. You can't go out there anywhere, especially social media, without menopause being, every third post. Tell me about that. What led you to open that door and support women through that? I mean, I'm post
Okay.
menopause 15 years. Um, but I
Okay.
have a story, where I went in and, I hit the wall. I was on a menopause movement podcast and she asked me about it. And I said, it was like hitting a wall at 46, sliding down it and sitting there. And
Yes.
when I went to my male doctor, he told me, and I asked for her, I didn't know what to ask for. He told me just to suck it up and you'll get through it. And that's what I did. I never took a hormone. True story. I sucked it up, but my
Wow.
life
Things
imploded.
have changed, thankfully,
Yes,
but
they
more
have.
change is required because I would
Right.
say that I was aware of perimenopause before entering it, but I still didn't know that the signs I was experiencing were all perimenopause. So I'm looking for the
Who
hot
knows if
flushes, I'm looking for
yeah,
the mind fog. For me, it was arthritis in my feet, uh,
frozen
frozen
shoulders,
shoulder. I
can't
went to
think
the dentist
clearly.
and he's
Yeah.
saying, you're in early stage gum disease. It's perimenopause.
Yeah.
It's perimenopause. But for me, my mission is I want to encourage people to be educated so they know what to be on the lookout because you need to know the signs and symptoms so that you can best advocate for yourself. So you
Yes.
know when to reach out for support and the
I wish I
support
would have
is
had that, just
available.
that little mini list you gave.
Yeah,
Gum disease, frozen shoulders,
yeah,
surgery,
yep,
didn't need it, but it was a frozen, I didn't know. Gum disease to the degree
yeah,
where I've had 9 implants. I mean, it
yeah.
hit me so
Yes,
hard and it hit my self-esteem too. I thought, what's
it does.
happening? I'm not doing it right. I've done everything wrong. And I think women need to know that we're susceptible to this. I love the fact that you are shining a light on it, coaching women through it. What would be the biggest? I think we need to have that list. Because say the list again. I
Yeah.
know I'm having you repeat
Oh,
things,
well,
but
this is just, I mean, this is just
it's
my
so
own list.
important. Yeah.
This
Well,
is
your
just
own
my own
list
list.
is. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you
So
just
for
spoke to
me, it was
me, and I imagine you're going to speak to
arthritis.
thousands of others as well.
Absolutely. So for me, it was arthritis in my feet. And the more women I speak to, the more women I realize have got really debilitating pain in their feet. Definitely frozen shoulder is another very common one. And for me,
Yeah.
my gums. But it's also, it shows up in that imposter syndrome just seems to come out of nowhere
Yeah.
where you can go from feeling confident and self-assured to the next day you're thinking,
Yeah.
well, I'm about to get found out here. What is this?
Yeah.
The
Your whole
anxiety.
identity shifts. You're just not quite sure your
Absolutely.
footing just
Yeah,
completely
it's
shifts.
like
Yeah.
someone pulls out the rug from
Yeah.
underneath your feet. It's so destabilizing. And
Yeah.
it wasn't, I'm 47. Up until this point, for me, perimenopause has largely been musculoskeletal stuff.
Yeah.
But it's, I would say in the last couple of months, I've been noticing that if I've got too many open tabs, I'm going to forget something. That brain fog,
Yeah.
do you know what? It really eats away at you. It's, you start to think, what's wrong with me here? Where I'm
Right.
losing my faculties. It's really alarming. And for
Right.
so many women, if they don't realize that's what it is, and they don't reach out for the support that they need, it's very alienating,
Yeah. I
and
think
the
we have to
effects are
normalize
real.
it. I mean, I just turned 60. So it wasn't normalized back then. I was like a lone ranger and I was frightened. I didn't know what was happening. And I leaned into Western medicine and what they told me, the shoulder surgery for the frozen. I wish I wouldn't have done it because now it's like still frozen. Then they went in and so all arthritis, all the things that I was told I could, if I would have had the knowledge, the
Yeah,
information, I would have
yeah,
normalized it. I would have had the conversation. Do you have I'm just going to go a little extra here. Do you have a
sure.
circle of women that you discuss like a perimenopausal group
I
or?
do. I've got a GP that specializes in hormonal health,
Mm,
and I've got a collect. I call them my team of angels. And absolutely, we share notes, we share clients,
nothing
we
short of a team
support
of
each
angels.
other.
Yeah.
You know, we need that. We need
Yeah.
that. We need that sense of being held and that safe place to give voice. Yeah.
Yeah, the conversation of normalizing that you're not alone, that someone else is going through it as well, and sharing that information. I
Yep.
always say collaborative. I lean in so hard to collaborating. I think that's why I launched this podcast. It's just I want more information to share so people feel less alone. They're not going through this alone. You're not going crazy. You're going through menopause, and let's normalize it. And right now, I
Absolutely.
think there's so many books out there that have been launched that are on the platform, a documentary. It's the first time ever it's being discussed to the depth that it's being discussed. But that brings me to your book, Self-Care for Winter. Talk about
Yeah.
that. Let's
Okay.
talk about that because that hit when I saw that, I screenshotted it, ordered it, and I'm like, I love that book.
It's something that I feel very passionate about because generally when anyone in the UK finds out that I'm from Australia, they ask, "What are you doing here? Why
I mean, you
why
went from
did you
the
choose this
sunshine state
climate?"
with no winter
Wow.
to constant rain. And how do you, number one, before you go into the book, how do you deal with that? Sunshine
With
state, yeah, I mean, not California, but Australia.
diligent
Yeah.
diligent self-care practices. Really,
Ah,
we've got to take really good care of ourselves. When
yeah,
it's sunny, you go outside, you receive light and life.
yeah.
Life is it is easier. Whereas
So
in
you
winter,
had to create it when you were in the UK. You're like, okay, this is
yes,
not, I'm not getting what I need. So I'm
yeah,
going to create. Oh, I
correct.
love
I had
that.
to get really intentional about it. But
Yeah.
also, when I reflect on, I've lived in the UK for about 2 decades now.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of my peak life experiences have been wintry ones. So
Mm,
I want to acknowledge with this book, I really want to acknowledge it's not you, it's winter. It's hard, and it's hard for good reason. So the book
right.
very much validates why winter is challenging. And we take a look at the science of just how the environmental cues impact us. Just a few examples. We tend to, we're hungrier, we're less satisfied by our foods, we crave more energy dense foods, um, we need more sleep. So a lot of these things people interpret as, oh, I'm lazy and weak. No, it's just winter. It's not you.
I
It's
hear it all the
okay.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah. I love that you
but
just said that. It is true. We
it's
are more hungry. Things are less
it's
satisfying.
true.
It's already
Yeah,
happening.
it is. So let's acknowledge it for what it is. These are basic impulses. There is that desire to retreat, to hibernate. Let's honor that. But how can we honor that in a way that doesn't mean that we stagnate, doesn't
Right.
sabotage? How can we seek comfort in life-giving ways rather than ways that make tomorrow harder? So this is where the book came from, to give people these answers to how it is that we can nourish ourselves. But also,
Right.
instead of just looking at winter and thinking, oh, God, I dread it, all of those things that we find challenging, they're
Yeah.
real. We do find them challenging. But the more we kind of, you know, slide into that dread, the more our
Mhm.
eyes see it. So if we can
Mm,
start piquing a little bit of curiosity about, well, what are the joys
mm.
unique to winter? That curiosity just opens us up to receiving perhaps more joy. So that's what the book is all about.
Yeah, I love that. And as you know, it's November 1st today, and we are
Mhm.
actually entering the winter season. So for
Yeah.
the people that are going to hear this in this season, what can we give them without, I'd love for them to get the book because I think it's full of nuggets and information
Mhm.
that can help guide and support them through. But
Okay.
if they're hearing this podcast, what can you give them and leave them with that
Okay.
would support them through this season where all of a sudden the days are shorter, it's darker,
Yep.
everything shifts, and they feel like, what's happening? I don't feel great. And what can
Yeah.
you give them?
Okay. I want to keep it super simple. I
Mm,
want to just offer a three-pronged approach. So this
mm,
is how can we honor these impulses? We want to hibernate, but don't stagnate. Okay. So
mm,
do hunker down. Absolutely, 100%. But that doesn't mean that we stop moving, because we need to move for access to our sense of humor, for a buoyant mood. We need a dose of nature therapy so that we feel connected. So wherever we can, get out. That might mean we need to rug up. It might mean that we need to exercise earlier in our day. And I'm not talking about necessarily going to the gym unless you want to, of course, do that if that's your thing, but just get out and go for a walk. And even if you cannot face that, or if that's not available to you, because sometimes there are seasons of life where you can't move as you wish, but we still need to move for our mental health. So that's where it's like, even if you're chair bound, can you do some mobilizations? Can you stretch? What can you move? Keep moving. That's so important. So that's
my shoulders just cracked. I just went, oh, my shoulders just cracked.
the good old the chicken wing shoulder rolls. So that's the first.
Yeah, everyone that's watching this and they're on YouTube, do it with us. Shoulder roll, roll
shoulder
the
rolls.
neck, roll the
Get
shoulders.
the chicken wings out. Get the chicken wings out.
Get the chicken wings out.
So that's the first element. The second element is we crave comfort, but make sure that you are giving yourself comfort that doesn't make tomorrow harder. So if we take a look at what we habitually turn to for comfort, we're talking sugar, caffeine, alcohol, screens. I'm not saying don't enjoy those things. I am saying just make sure that you've got a broad toolkit from which to draw. It doesn't always have to be a piece of chocolate. It could be spritzing scent that you love.
Right.
So broaden that toolkit. How can you provide comfort in a way that sustains you rather than depletes you or makes it harder to sleep later? Yeah.
Love that. Was that 3? Did you give 3?
That's second. The third one is when we hibernate, we want to retreat.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. But make sure you don't isolate yourself. So stay connected. Stay current, communicate care. It's also an opportunity to connect with yourself. So if you don't fancy socializing as much, that's fine. But let's just make sure that we're not leaving ourselves vulnerable to loneliness, because that's so harmful for our health and well-being, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think Suzy means don't connect to the TV. That's not connection, people. As much as you love it, we're not judging, but she means connect with another human.
Social connection.
Nature. Yeah.
Human, shared humanity in this moment together. Now, whether that means you're holding someone's hand sitting on the sofa while you're watching TV, that's connection. Make sure you've got the cat on your lap while you're watching. Yeah, it is just make sure that there's soul food in there.
I love that. How could they, I'm thinking of someone that might be listening to this and thinking, oh, that's so simple. And I love simple. Simple, simple, simple is how I roll. So I love those 3 steps. But if someone is stuck in a pattern, I always say people aren't stuck. They've got a mindset shift. How could they shift from perhaps they are? When you were talking about that, I thought about what people do. After work, they're tired and they have the same story. I'm tired, they overeat, then they go to bed, or they sit there and watch TV. And how can they make the shift? What's one thing they can do to say, you know what, today I heard this podcast and this woman said these 3 things they can do. What's the first thing they can do in their mind, the mind shift to get them out of their routine, their pattern? It's just a routine, their pattern, to make the shift that can really, I think, illuminate.
You've made me think hard, and I love that, Dana. Do you know what? Sometimes to get out of a routine way of thinking, we've got to shake things up. So if you if you are always in the same environment or you're sort of doing the same things, I would encourage, we need some kind of shift. If you tend to start your evening in one room, I'm suggesting go and sit somewhere else. Or if you can, just go for a walk around the block. But in this, I want people to think of this. This is a little purposeful pause, right?
Ooh,
this
I
is
like
an
that.
opportunity
Purposeful pause. Purposeful pause.
Yeah, we're going to close
twister.
the laptop.
Purposeful pause. It's like Peter Picker.
It is.
Purpose. I said it right the first time. Yeah.
Just close those tabs, and if you have to interrupt that by going for a walk, great, do it. Just try it. 5 minutes around the block. Or if you feel like you can stay in your home environment but still achieve that shift of focus, then part of this purposeful pause is putting hands on heart and going, okay, where am I at? What do I need?
My favorite question.
How can I deliver that need? And can I deliver that need in a slightly different way to how I normally do? Get a slightly different result. Let's just try. Let's see.
Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that. That's what I do. And here I thought I made all that up. And and you're speaking my language. So well, not my last question, but almost. What would be the biggest challenge for people right now? Winter's upon us. What is going to be their biggest challenge, and how can they overcome it? Because people that they have a SAD perhaps, and they've experienced that seasonal affect disorder, or the days are getting shorter and they're already feeling the angst. So they're anticipating. What is the biggest challenge this time of year that you see, and what do you do to help them overcome it outside of the tools you've
Okay.
already given us?
Okay. So I think you've named all of those physical challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's the lack of light, the lack of warmth,
Yeah.
it's hostile out there. But essentially, the biggest challenge that we face is prioritizing ourselves. So it
Mm,
doesn't matter because people will have a different response to all of those different things. But the fundamental
mm,
barrier that we face is feeling like it's not okay for us to take the action that's required for us to
mm.
cope with the variables that we're embedded in.
So when the
So I
world,
encourage you,
the
yeah,
days
just,
shorten, the busyness ends, people have a
yeah,
hard time
what do you
prioritizing
need to
themselves.
do? What do you need to do as a human being? It might look entirely different to what your partner needs. It might
Yeah.
be in conflict with what your mum needs or what your mum thinks you need. It doesn't matter. What do you need? And how can you
Mm,
give yourself dispensation to address that human need? And a need is not a luxury. It's not a nice to have. It's a need. This is what we need to function,
yeah.
to feel healthy. So how can
Mm.
we prioritize our needs?
Love that, love that, love that, love that, love that. I've never asked so many times, repeat that, because I think it's so needed. I feel energetically it's so needed right now. I think this will release just the first week of winter, which I think it's so relative and so on point, because I think that this being an election year as well, I think there's so much angst and anxiety, all the things that people can't control. This is something they can do, and
Yes.
it's simple. And they can also buy your book, which I would suggest, I was going to say waking up in winter, but it's self-care for winter. Self-care for winter, simple, applicable tools, easy, easy, easy. Anyone listening to this knows how much I love easy. I love simple. It's my middle name. If it's overcomplicated, I know people are not going to do it. They're not going to remember, especially when in this mode of, when most people that are going to utilize this don't find themselves doing self-care. They're at the bottom of their tank and they're saying, okay, what do I do now? So I think that they should watch and listen to this on like repeat, rewind, repeat, rewind, repeat. Okay, my last question for you, Suzy, is this, because I have to ask it, because it's just in my heart to ask on every podcast. And I want to know, what in your life right now feels like love?
Oh, it's tenderness.
Oh,
Tenderness. Tenderness feels like love. Tender
wow.
words, tender gestures, tender actions. And from that tenderness, this is how we resource ourselves. And for
Oh,
anyone that's thinking, I can't possibly prioritize myself, please do, because the world needs resource people. And look at what you can contribute when you've resourced yourself, when you've extended that tenderness towards yourself. Let's
wow.
do it.
I love that. And I think that's the last thing people think of when they think of tenderness, to go in. They think of, how can I be tender out here? How can I be? But they never think of being tender with different versions of themselves, or their inner child, or, it's always demand, do, level up,
Give, give.
give, give, give. Yeah. But to just stop in this season of self-care for the winter, be tender with yourselves. I love that you said that feels like love, because when you said that, I wanted to put my hands on my heart and I thought, oh, I felt that in
Yeah.
my heart chakra. I felt that. And that was beautiful. Oh, I could talk to you all day. So how can people find you? Tell me what's available. Tell me what's coming up. I know they can follow you on social media. Like, I found you out there and I'm like, it was like a radar going boom, boom. And I mean, yeah, when I found
I
you, it
love
was
the
like,
shared language, Dana. I think it was I said something like, I see you. And then I looked at your feed and I'm finding this beautiful mirroring, this resonance
Yeah.
in our languaging. But that's where I spend a lot of time. Self-care for winter is where you'll find my little toolkit.
Oh,
But
put that back up. It's sparkling.
it
Did you see?
sparkles. Look, the snowflakes
It's
are
sparkling. You
embossed.
know what? I was
So it
looking for it,
sparkles.
but it's double downed in my library, and I wanted to show it. But thank you for showing it. Can you put
Yeah.
that back up again so people can
Sure.
actually, where could they find this book, Self Care for Winter? And
This
again,
is really widely available. I don't think it's out in the States until early Jan. But I tell you what, for anyone who can't get their hands on it just yet, I am sharing my winter or hunt discoveries. So I
ooh,
go for my walks, and the things that just fill me with that sense of zest follow
I
along
love
with me
zest.
there. And I love that people are also joining me in my ore hunting, and they tag me in their stories
Oh,
so that
I
I can share
love
them on
that.
my stories, because in my experience, joy shared is joy amplified.
Well,
So
I
come
love
and
your
hang out with
playfulness.
me
I
there.
love how you play with this. I love the 7 steps to that your book. And you know what I really also love? I love that you so they can that they can go out there and play with you on social media. It just lighten up.
Go for a walk
And
together.
yeah, I always say we're in this together, but you really encompass
Yeah,
and embrace. I think that you have this warmth where people don't feel alone. They know that they're in the fold. And that's uniqueness. It's why you were on my radar. I felt the warmth, I felt the heart, I felt the connectiveness. And I think in a world that we're living in now, people just want to connect. They don't want to
we
feel
do. We
stolen
need all the
separate
warm
from.
hugs.
Yeah.
We do. Oh,
Yeah.
Damon.
So if you want to work with Suzy, if you want to find her on social media. So what is your handle? Is that what they call it? I'm so old.
Yeah, it's just my name, Suzy Reading. Come and hang out with me there. Yeah,
And if
connect.
yeah, and if you want to work with her, she's a psychologist, she's a coach, she's a self-care advocate, she's I would say a menopause supporter, and there's an expansion there that I see you building out, which I'm
Mm,
excited to see grow. And
mm,
because let's face it, we are just touching the iceberg on what women need to support them through this. You know, I used
mm.
to feel helpless with my clients when they came to me with the symptoms, and I'm like, well, I went through suck it up, buttercup. I didn't say that, but inside I'm thinking,
Yeah.
unless you're going to go for the hormones, but it's not the case anymore. There's
Mm.
so much emotional, support out there available. And I would say you're warm. I would recommend Suzy all day, every day
Oh,
for
Damon.
supporting and holding space. And I know there's a lot of not post, premenopausal. Is it premenopausal? It's been so long. What do they call
Perimenopausal.
perimenopausal? I always think
Yeah.
perimenopausal. I say pre and post. Perimenopausal women that are actually needing support.
Mm,
Lean in, don't lean out. Don't be frightened of it, because
mm.
knowledge is power. Suzy,
It
you
is.
are angelic. I love your energy. I love spending time with you. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you. I know you're going to help a
Thank you,
lot of
Damon.
women. I know you are.
Thank you. And I so look forward to just sharing the journey with you. It's just the
Ah,
beginning, isn't it? We're just getting to
it's
know each
it's
other. It's
it's
a
just the
pleasure.
beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's heart connections and these big energy cords of people that I call in, and people say, "How do you pick people on your podcast?"
Mm,
Maybe they pick me. It's just they're on my radar. And then
mm,
you just said something pretty interesting. You said, "I see you." And I just put on my my stories yesterday a picture of me, and I said, "I see you." And so
mm.
I look for
So powerful.
synchronicities, synergy, signs, which are everywhere, and it's why you're here. I love you. I
Mm.
love the book. I hope everyone gets it. And thank you. And I
Thank
know
you,
it's
Damon.
late there in the UK, but thank you for being here.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for filling my cup.
Oh, thank you for filling everyone's cup.